the Bolsheviks. Their leader, Vladimir Lenin, recently returned from 16 years in exile, bitterly opposed the imperialist war. He also demanded the immediate redistribution of land, from rich landowners to peasants, and the transfer of power from the bourgeois provisional government to the People's Soviets or councils that were springing up across Russia. In October, Lenin decided the time had come. He secretly returned from Finland to Petrograd and began preparing to seize power. On the 25th of October, the Bolsheviks made their move. Red Guards and loyal troops seized key points around the capital, and that night they stormed the provisional government's headquarters at the Winter Palace, an event later immortalized by Bolshevik propaganda and the great Soviet filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein. In July 1918, as white forces approached the city, Bolshevik soldiers gathered the whole family in a cellar. The Tsar, his wife, their son Alexei, their 4 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia, as well as 4 servants, and executed them all. Russia's civil war was one of the 20th century's most devastating events. An estimated 2 million soldiers lost their lives, while a typhus epidemic and famine claimed the lives of a further 9 million civilians. By the end of 1921, the Bolsheviks had emerged victorious, and under Lenin's determined and uncompromising leadership, set about building a new socialist order. The Soviet Union, created in 1922, emerged as a world superpower following the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. But it would always remain a single-party state, where all opposition or dissent was ruthlessly suppressed. Those brief hopes for Russian democracy that flowered amid the euphoria of the February Revolution were extinguished by the Bolshevik October Revolution, and put beyond reach for decades to come.
After Stalin's death in 1953, Nikita Khrushchev had become leader, soon creating the Warsaw Pact to counter the growing power of NATO. When a new president, John F. Kennedy, came to power in 1961, Khrushchev made an attempt to secure Berlin. There had been around 2.7 million defections from communist East Germany since 1949, most of which had escaped through West Berlin. Securing the city was therefore vital to the survival of the German Democratic Republic, with defections, usually of the highly trained and educated, growing by the day. At a 1961 meeting in Vienna, Khrushchev gave Kennedy 6 months to vacate Berlin, but Kennedy refused. Now desperate, Khrushchev authorized the construction of the Berlin Wall on August 12, 1961, creating a physical barrier between East and West Berlin. Starting as a barbed wire fence, it soon turned into a massive concrete block wall, 12 feet high and nearly 100 miles long, complete with armed guards and minefields. It was an embarrassment for communists everywhere. But Kennedy was having difficulties of his own. Cuba had been taken over by communist revolutionaries in early 1959. Led by Fidel Castro, the revolutionaries began freeing Cuba of its economic and political reliance on the US, eventually turning to the Soviet Union for help, with him sending nuclear missiles to the island in 1962. American reconnaissance aircraft soon spotted the missiles, causing Kennedy to begin a naval blockade of Cuba to prevent any further Soviet shipments from arriving, and the US alert system was raised to DEFCON 2 for the first time in history. They were preparing for nuclear war. Thinking they were under attack, the submarine's captain ordered nuclear torpedoes to be launched. but the decision required the approval of all 3 onboard officers. One of the officers, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to go through with the launch, single-handedly preventing the outbreak of nuclear war. The very next day, on October 28th, Kennedy and Khrushchev were able to come to an agreement. Kennedy promised not to invade Cuba, and Khrushchev removed the Soviet missiles. It was the closest the world has ever come to nuclear war, and it significantly impacted the outlook of both powers, with a hotline being installed between the White House and the Kremlin.
В силу сложившейся ситуации с образованием Содружества независимых государств я прекращаю свою деятельность на посту президента СССР.
In Moscow, the hammer and sickle is lowered for the last time, and an era comes to an end.